Long before social media algorithms turned our anger into profit, one tiny man in a red cape already owned the formula for mass irritation.
You don't have to waste good manners on the ogre. It's not like it has feelings.
Lord Farquaad is the original blueprint for the modern online troll. From his character design to his toxic personality, he mastered the art of the viral reaction decades ago. And yet, we seem to have forgotten him. But that changes today. The first time Shrek hears the name Lord Farquaad, it already sounds like trouble. A bunch of guards are chasing after Donkey when they all run into Shrek in the woods. Then, one of the guards pulls out his giant scroll and goes,
"By the order of Lord Farquaad, I am authorized to place you both under arrest."
You can also see that the scroll opens up with Farquaad's logo slapped across it. And right there, the movie starts building this image in your head before the man even appears on screen. Then the name pops up again later, except this time it's from a little pig.
By who?
Lord Farquaad. He hoofed and he puffed and he...
It happens after Shrek discovers that his swamp looks like a Comic-Con refugee camp. Fairy tale creatures are sleeping everywhere. Pinocchio is panicking, and the pigs explain that Lord Farquaad signed eviction notices and kicked everybody out. So before we ever meet this guy, the movie already connects his name to two things: harassment and paperwork. And seriously, think about the name itself for a second. Farquaad. Even as kids, it might have sounded odd to you, but then you grow older and your mind gets dirtier, and suddenly your brain goes, oh,
wait a minute,
this actually sounds like Farquaad. You won't be wrong to have that idea because a lot of people do too. However, there are those who have also connected it to DreamWorks animator Mark Farquhar. But whatever the real origin or inspiration for the name is, the effect still works perfectly. The second someone says Lord Farquaad, your brain already prepares for somebody annoying. And for Shrek, the name had come with the invasion of his piece. Then, the movie finally introduces him, and somehow he turns out even worse than the name suggested. Right there in his torture room, the gingerbread man is getting dunked into milk over and over when Farquaad casually walks in like a manager checking on office progress. Then comes one of the funniest visual jokes in the entire movie. Farquaad walks toward the table laughing, reaches it, but we find out that the table is taller than he is. The movie pauses just long enough for the audience to process the embarrassment before he clears his throat, and the table is lowered for him. That moment right there explains a lot about his personality. But first, his character design was doing all the heavy lifting, letting us know that this is a book we should definitely judge by its cover. The giant hat, the red cape, the scowl on his face as he tortures Gingy, every piece of his design looks like somebody trying to overcompensate for what he lacks. DreamWorks basically built a man whose entire personality runs on please take me seriously. Even his usual colors help with the rage bait. Red already carries ideas of rage, danger, and authority. So every time Farquaad enters a room, the movie blasts that image directly into your eyeballs. Then there's the haircut. That haircut deserves prison time by itself. The straight black page boy cut makes him look like somebody fused a medieval king with a Lego minifigure. It looks stiff, fake, and painfully controlled, which matches his kingdom Duloc perfectly. By this point, the audience already understands the game the movie is playing. Farquaad exists as Ragebait in human form. His name annoys you, and so does his face and voice. Even his kingdom and fake perfection are there to bait you. You honestly can't help but judge this book by its cover, right? And weirdly enough, that same formula powers a lot of online ragebait today, with people putting out annoying content so that reactions become guaranteed. But Farquaad's whole look is a very specific prank on a real person. See, back in the 90s, Jeffrey Katzenberg had a huge fight with his old boss at Disney, a man named Michael Eisner. Reports say Eisner called Katzenberg a little midget during their argument. So Katzenberg used Lord Farquaad to get revenge. And when placed side by side, you can certainly see the resemblance. They have the same pale skin and blue eyes, rectangular face, and a giant chin. But the creators made Farquaad incredibly short to turn the insult back on Eisner. They turned a real-life billionaire into a cartoon brat who needs a stool to see over his own desk. Crazy stuff. But it gets better because once you look beyond Farquaad's name and character design, you start realizing something dangerous is hiding underneath all of it. Did you know that the original version of Shrek didn't even have Lord Farquaad in it? You see, long before the movie existed, William Steig wrote a children's picture book in 1990 called Shrek, and the story was very different. In the book, Shrek was way scarier. He could breathe fire and shoot lasers out of his eyes. He leaves home, scares people, and falls in love with a princess who is just as ugly as he is. But when DreamWorks bought the rights to the book, they changed almost everything. They needed a villain who represented everything anti-Shrek, and that is how we got the tiny, angry ruler of Duloc, Lord Farquaad. Remember how we said that Farquaad was created as a jab at Eisner? Well, Jeffrey Katzenberg wanted to go all in, and one way he did was to deliberately make Duloc look like a sterile, boring parody of Disneyland. But even more interesting, when Shrek looks at Farquaad's massive tower and asks if he is compensating for something, he is basically asking if Farquaad is trying to hide how small he is by building big things. It is believed that this was also intended to mock the management style of Eisner. And this brings us to the heart of Farquaad's Ragebait, his massive Napoleon complex. This is when someone is small in stature, but tries to act like a giant scary boss to make up for it. And Farquaad is the king of overcompensation. He hates himself for being short, so he tries to control everything and everyone else to feel powerful. He rules like someone who needs constant proof that power belongs to him, and the movie uses that insecurity as a source of rage bait. He surrounds himself with huge symbols of control: a massive castle, long halls, towering walls, and a kingdom built on strict order. The way Farquaad speaks is equally designed to make your skin crawl. He has a way of saying the most unpleasant things with the fake politeness of a corporate manager. The Napoleon complex shows up even in how he runs his kingdom. Farquaad never puts himself in danger. He creates a tournament where knights fight to the death for the chance to rescue Fiona. He watches everything from a safe distance, turning life and death into entertainment. That setup creates frustration for the audience because it places him above consequences, while others carry all the risk. That imbalance becomes another form of rage bait, the kind that builds irritation through structure rather than words. Standing high up on that balcony, looking down at his knights, Lord Farquaad drops one of the most savage lines in movie history.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Just let that sink in for a second. The audacity to tell a crowd of people to their faces that their lives are worth less than his convenience is pure insanity. This man is way too lazy and far too cowardly to actually climb a dragon's tower himself, so he treats human beings like cheap toys he can just toss in the trash when they break. Then Shrek wanders into the arena, and Farquaad's true nastiness really starts to leak out. He looks at this giant ogre and refuses to even see a person standing there. Instead, he sees something hideous, calling Shrek an it before ordering his knights to move in for the kill.
The one who kills the ogre will be named champion. Have at him!
Every time that man opens his mouth, he sounds like he's hosting a fancy dinner party, but underneath the polished manners, he is nothing but a mean, small-minded tyrant. Even in his private moments, he is pathetic. We see him in his giant bed asking the mirror to show him Fiona over and over.
Show her to me. Show me the princess.
Then he pulls the sheets up to cover his chest like he's shy, making the whole scene extra ridiculous, especially because he's only looking at a reflection. When he eventually meets Fiona, he shows up with an ego that suffocates the air. He starts by treating Shrek like a common pest, showing zero gratitude for the life-threatening mission Shrek just finished.
Take it and go before I change my mind.
Watch how fast he flips into fake charm the second he turns toward Fiona. He calls her a radiant beauty, while a guard has to physically lift him off his horse and plop him on the ground, standing at her waist level. He stops her from being polite to Shrek with a line that makes your blood boil.
You don't have to waste good manners on the ogre. It's not like it has feelings.
To him, empathy is a waste on anyone he considers trash. However, his narcissism peaks during the proposal when he calls Fiona like he is admiring a trophy. He asks her to be the perfect bride for the perfect groom. Then he rudely interrupts her acceptance.
I accept. Nothing would make—
Excellent! I'll start the plans.
He is so wrapped up in his own image that he assumes she is desperate for him. Like it or not, Farquaad understands how to control a room through outrage. Every smug comment, cruel order, and fake calm speech pulls attention straight toward him, almost like the medieval version of somebody farming engagement online. He also works as ragebait because he represents the worst kind of authority. He is the boss who takes credit for your work, the bully who hides behind his friends, and the person who thinks being perfect means being cruel to anyone who's different. He keeps pushing the same emotional button over and over without changing. And by the end, his personality, his insecurity, and his authority all connect into something clear. A small man building a large world around himself, trying to force respect through control, while leaving a trail of irritation in every scene he enters. But while we may notice the rage baiting and the comedic nature of all of it, there's something about Farquaad that might go over the head of some. Remember the scene where Shrek bursts through the doors to stop the wedding? So Lord Farquaad is standing there, puckering his lips for a kiss, ready to claim his prize. Then Shrek enters to tell Fiona that Farquaad is only marrying her to become a real king, which is the absolute truth. However, Farquaad just laughs and calls the idea of an ogre in love precious. He even has guys holding up cards that tell the audience to laugh along with him. But then the sun sets, and Fiona transforms into an ogre right in front of him. She finally shows everyone who she really is, and Farquaad loses it completely.
Oh, it's disgusting! Guards! Guards!
He tells his guards to seize Shrek and Fiona, shouting that the marriage is still binding. When the guards grab them, he shouts at Shrek, saying that he will make him regret the day they met, and see that Shrek is drawn and quartered. He goes on to say that Shrek will beg for death to save him. Dude, that is an incredibly dark thing to say in a movie with a talking donkey. But as if that wasn't enough, he turns to Fiona and holds a dagger to her throat.
And as for you, my wife, I'll have you locked back in that tower for the rest of your days!
This scene is one of the moments you realize that the comedy is a mask for a true villain. Farquaad, ladies and gentlemen, is pure evil. When you look back at everything he did, the evil is everywhere. Think about the first time we met him when he was literally playing with the severed legs of a gingerbread man. Or how he views the magic mirror as a television and his knights as disposable toys. And to ground him in his villainy, DreamWorks decided that even in death, Farquaad can still be a threat. Most villains stay gone once a dragon eats them, but Farquaad is so full of spite that he actually comes back as a ghost.
Stop playing hard to get.
You know I'm irresistible.
In Shrek 4D, he returns from the grave to finish his evil plan. Even though he called Fiona disgusting for being an ogre, he sends his old henchman Thelonious to kidnap her again. He wants to kill her so she can become his spirit queen in the underworld. That way, he can rule the land of the dead just because he lost the land of the living. Also, he sends a giant stone statue of a dragon to chase Shrek and Donkey through a cemetery. He's like that one person who loses a game and tries to flip the entire table. The guy cannot accept that he lost and stays petty and cruel even after he's dead. But all of this leads to the bigger reason Lord Farquaad still stands out today, even though many might not recognize him as a master of ragebait. Lord Farquaad remains the master of ragebait because he understood one thing before the internet even existed. People react harder to irritation than to kindness. That is basically modern social media. The loudest person gets the attention. The most annoying person controls the conversation. And somehow, back in 2001, this tiny man in a red cape already mastered the formula years before Twitter arguments, TikTok discourse, and YouTube thumbnails with giant red arrows. Think about the year Shrek was released. Disney fairy tales ruled animation through the 1990s, with movies like The Lion King and Tarzan. Beautiful castles, perfect romances, heroic princes, dramatic villains, you name it. Audiences already knew the formula by heart. Then Shrek walked in like a drunk guy, kicking open the palace doors. The movie immediately tears into fairy tale perfection, and Farquaad becomes the living symbol of everything people were getting tired of. And honestly, that fake perfection connects perfectly to modern online ragebait culture. A lot of online ragebait works through performance. Somebody acts smug, superior, fake polite, or weirdly obsessed with rules because they know people will react emotionally. Farquaad runs Duloc exactly like that. He creates a world designed to irritate both the characters and the audience. He smiles while saying horrible things and casually commits cruel acts like it's nothing.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
That line sounds exactly like something that would explode online today. Imagine hearing that clipped into a TikTok audio with millions of views and angry comments underneath. People would stitch it for weeks and reaction channels would farm it for content immediately. The line works because Farquaad delivers it with complete calmness while talking about human lives, like they're expired coupons. That is ragebait at its purest form. Even the way he insults people feels modern.
What is that?
What is this? It's hideous. Comes out the second he sees Shrek. No hesitation or manners, just instant disrespect. And the funniest part is that he always thinks he sounds smart. That is why we still remember him over 20 years later. Plenty of animated villains want power, whereas Farquaad wants attention, validation, control, perfection, admiration, and fear all at once. Every room has to orbit around him. Every conversation has to end with him winning, and every person around him exists to protect his ego. This makes the online comparison even stronger because internet ragebait usually comes from insecurity pretending to be superiority. You see it everywhere online. Somebody acts richer, smarter, tougher, or more politically correct than everybody else because outrage creates clicks. That basically makes him a medieval content creator. In summary, Farquaad represents a lot of people we see every day. The boss who talks about professionalism and teamwork while treating workers terribly. The influencer who creates fake controversy for clicks. The politician obsessed with image instead of people. Or the internet personality who builds an audience entirely through arrogance and humiliation. Farquaad survives because his personality survives. That is why he remains the master of ragebait. He arrived before algorithms took over social media, before engagement farming became a business model, and before outrage became entertainment. Farquaad is the ultimate example of a villain we love to hate, but he only works because he has the perfect hero to push against. Shrek is an underdog who survived in a world built to reject him. However, if you want to see how that kind of outsider story is built from the ground up, our last video breaks down how to write a believable underdog that actually earns your attention.